Welcome to True Talk, brought to you by Trueland Equipment. Join us as we explore cutting-edge machinery, groundbreaking technology, and inspirational stories from the field.
From the dedicated efforts of our team members to the triumphs and challenges of our farmers, True Talk brings you along every step of the way.
Whether you're a seasoned agriculturalist or simply curious about the industry, tune in to discover the fascinating intersection of technology, agriculture, and green machines.
True Talk, cultivating true conversations.
I think this is really good content, and these technologies, there's a lot of excitement surrounding them right now.
There's a lot of excitement surrounding True Talk right now, is what you
I hope
think
so.
you mean.
I hope so. A little bit of self-promotion there, right?
Yeah. Shameless plug, I think,
Right.
is what the kids call it these days.
Right. No, that's good, though. So it's almost planting season.
Almost. When the weather decides to start cooperating.
It is planting season by the calendar almost, right? But the weather says otherwise. Sounds like we have a planting window coming up maybe towards the end of next week for a good 2 weeks plus, which is normal. And I think we're going to get pretty busy. But I think we're going to also be having a lot of discussion and a lot of phone calls and a lot of customer involvement in AutoPath Boundaries and Work Planner,
We hope.
right?
Yeah, so Work Planner is something that I feel like we've been talking a lot about all winter, really. It's something that anybody can do as far ahead as they want. And I know that, at least for the guys that I work with, I know I was encouraging them to do that during their downtime this winter. At least plug in, associate a crop with a field. Start
Right.
there, assign your guidance lines. And then if you really feel like getting crazy, go and build your AutoPath boundary files as well and attach those to the corresponding fields.
Right. This is what I would call a strike while the iron's hot kind of podcast and kind of subject matter because, I feel like so many of these technologies, Work Planner is one. We talk about it. We promote it. We talk about it. And then all of a sudden it hits and there's a niche and all of a sudden people start using it. And I feel like right now is probably the most conversation I've had on Work Planner since I've been here for sure. And since the last however many years it's been a thing. And you're starting.
I think the ease of attaching scripts and then AutoPath boundaries joining the AutoPath family, I think those two things alone are cause for people to really start opening their eyes to what Work Planner is, other than just an annoying tab that a lot of people like to ignore on their setup.
The integration of AutoPath is a big deal. But you got these scenarios now. We've got I got a customer who has an old guy planting his corn, and now that gentleman understands, hey, if I pull in and it pops up this work plan and everything's there for me, the guy says that would be really wonderful. The elderly gentleman says that. So then, boom, there's an in for work planner. Integrating AutoPath. Boom, there's an in for work planner. I had somebody else reach out to me even today and say, hey, Dad wants to run the sprayer. I want to get 4.0 on it so we can AutoPath. I'm getting ready to send out work plans to the sprayer for Dad. Boom. It's just picking up this amazing momentum. And a lot of those things we've dealt with over the years, once they catch, they just take off and run.
Yeah.
And
So, Work Planner, what is it?
Yeah.
Wait, are we going to introduce Justin?
That's
Justin's
kind of what I was
back.
waiting for.
Sorry.
I didn't know we had started when we started.
Justin's not a special guest. He's just a guest, right? He's been on before. He's
just here.
He's a team member, Justin Johnson. Welcome back, Justin.
Thank you.
Justin is one of our, I would call Ops Center experts, per se, in our crew. Looking at Justin when we said, what is Work Planner? Because I felt it was a really good time for Justin to start talking.
Yeah. So, Work Planner, just like Jordan mentioned a minute ago there, we've had it for years now, but it's that next step up of kind of setup files, but take it to the next level, get your data to the equipment and fill out all your work setup steps in one kind of felt swoop.
So it basically is, I always said it was a setup file on steroids. Instead of just sending the information to the display and your separate field names and varieties, you wrap up a plan for each field into a work plan. It's just like it sounds, right? So
Essentially, they're binders.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
in a
almost like a
digital
field
form.
binder. Yeah, that's a great analogy. And so what we're doing is, I say this all the time, we're limiting button presses in the field. That's the goal here, right? We want people to be able to get started on their in-field processes without having to hit as many buttons. So setting your work plans up in Work Planner does that. It assigns the fields, the varieties, the populations, the scripts, if there's prescriptions, the guidance lines or AutoPath, and it wraps it up in this nice little package to where when you pull into that field and accept that work plan, everything is laid
Filled
out.
in.
Yeah, filled in and laid out in a display for you, so you have fewer button presses, right?
Literally, the most you have to do is if you if you have some one-off situation, so let's say a dual variety planner, you would have to assign variety A that's already in your display. You just have to assign it to one tank versus the other.
That's right.
I mean, that's about as crazy as you're going to get. Your AutoPath files are already there. I mean, everything that you need. Your guidance lines.
Yeah, and you mentioned dual variety. That's one time you might have to go in and do a couple presses, a little bit of editing. The other one is,
But if you're doing something that specific, you should expect to anyways.
right. Well, it's the same as a variety. We may run out of one variety and have to change varieties, or we may plant differently dictated by the field conditions, and we may have to move our varieties around.
Which you can do.
Yeah, but you just go in and you change variety.
So it's pre-populated, and we talk
Right.
a lot about how it's pre-populated, but it's completely editable
That's
too.
right.
So if for some reason you ran out of your 105 day and you've got to make a substitution, you can easily do that.
Yep.
The other nice thing about it is that you can do it from your phone.
Right.
Which setup file creators, we cannot edit any of those. If you want to get a new variety onto your display, the easiest way to go about that would be to just edit it in Work Planner.
That's right. Right. And it's not just for the planner too. I want to throw that out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it simplifies every operation in the field. It's something as simple as tillage, or we're starting to get into a lot of them in the strip till and things like that, where you're
The strip till is super nice because you can assign your AutoPath boundaries and then go and record your AutoPath rows files, which we'll talk more about AutoPath, but planting applies in the same way.
Yep.
So to document those AutoPath rows files so that you can use them for the remainder of the season, you have to have proper documentation. And so when you are using Work Planner, you're ensuring that your AutoPath files, now obviously it's not going to change your operation, so we still want to be conscious when we're recording those AutoPath lines to use for the remainder of the season of how we're planting that field and how we're generating those AutoPath rows files. But it's so convenient that you have all that documentation set up properly so that you can use them as productively and efficiently as possible for the remainder of the season.
Yep. So requirements to run Work Plan: Gen 4, Gen 5.
Gen 4, Gen 5.
Those are pretty obvious ones, right? What else?
Well, if you have a Gen 4, you have to have a V2 server.
V2 server. Op Center account, obviously.
Obviously.
Right,
I don't know how else you're going to make,
Right.
can make
Where the tool is
Updated
located.
software.
Be a good idea to have your software updated, and I'm on a kick to make sure everybody's displays are at least matching on software.
Yeah, and JD Link.
Right.
We have to have a modem.
Yep.
Yep.
Because sometimes with work plans come work groups too, if you have multiple machines in the same field doing the same thing. Right?
And work plans are all wireless, so we're not downloading work plans to a flash drive or sending these out wirelessly.
Yep. So again, that tool's picking up momentum. I'm excited. It just sometimes these technologies come out and it just takes time for guys to see the light, and I feel like we're seeing the light on work plans. And again, the most simple situations or the most complicated situations, it does not matter. Work Planner still.
Well, and
has a
it's kind
place.
of, Work Planner is kind of hidden in Op Center. So you have Setup File Creator, we had Crop Planner. About the time that Crop Planner went away, we started to introduce Work Planner. And I feel like it's one addition to Op Center that it's kind of like AutoPath. I mean, it's kind of hard to explain without actually seeing it and actually using it. I know that's why we spend so much time in our Op Center clinics going through Work Planner.
Yeah.
We don't go through Setup File Creator anymore because you probably know how to do that.
Right.
But the similarities between Setup File Creator and Work Planner are pretty great. I know that there's a lot of people who are hesitant to use Work Planner, even if they're not necessarily using AutoPath. You can still use Work Planner. It doesn't require Automation 4.0. It doesn't require an advanced license. It just kind of is a benefit of having the correct displays and having a connected fleet.
Yeah. Yep. Simplifying that process for the operator.
Yeah.
in the cab, and again that's what I think's got people excited, and especially we're pushing for maybe not necessarily a late spring, but a spring where when it's time to go, it's going to be time to go.
Yeah.
You know?
And me and the Farmer's Almanac, we're friends.
Yeah.
I like the Farmer's Almanac.
So what's the almanac saying this year then?
I just think it's going to be stop and go. But I think with the stop and go springs, we have a lot more on the fly changes.
Sure.
And that's going to be one more way that we ensure that our documentation stays correct. Because if you if you run out of a variety, forget to change it, et cetera, your variety locator for the fall is going to be off.
So two things I hear in that. Okay, number one, stop and go planting season means when it's time to go, we got to go, and we got to be ready to go. So work planner is going to help us on the efficiency side, and the other part of that is with stop and go season, having our ducks in a row,
organized
ahead of time with using a tool like work planner is going to pay big dividends. So we don't have to stop and worry about so much of that stuff when we need to go.
When it's a time crunch, that's when documentation isn't on the top of our mind. We need to get the seed in the ground, and that's like Jordan was saying. Everything stacks upon each other. If you want clean data, you want good, accurate data through the season and at the end of the season, you got to start good at the beginning. This just helps us make sure it's accurate and clean.
Yep, I agree. And you know what? It's cold outside. We're recording this podcast, and there's a lot of people sitting in Op Center right now.
Yep,
doing some stuff. So great time to get those last minute work plans put together.
Yep. Especially while we have seed in the shed. So
yeah,
we know exactly what we're putting in the ground. We can go pull our seed tags, take them up to the house, plug them in, good as gold.
Since we've already kind of mentioned AutoPath in this conversation, that was the other thing we were going to talk about again today, which we've talked about a little bit in a prior podcast, but it's kind of go time for AutoPath Boundaries, right? Company-wide.
It never hurts to talk more about AutoPath. I just watched a YouTube video or something today, and they were talking about I've tried, it was in a hvae, shockingly, in tall corn. I was like, I've tried multiple different guidance options. I've tried the cameras, I've tried the feelers, I tried this, I tried that, I tried, all the things, and bar none, nothing beats AutoPath.
AutoPath has been fantastic.
Yeah,
it really has. It says something by the amount of people that have jumped on board relatively quickly.
Yeah. We have plenty of customers that once they start using AutoPath, they never go back, and they don't want to. They don't. Right. They don't even give it another thought. That Automation 4.0, that advanced license, guaranteed renewal year after year.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's just one of those things. It's not an option. It's just immediately integrated into their operation once they've tried it and liked it.
Well, it's so seamless. There's a lot of guys who are a lot closer to being able to use implement guidance and document their AutoPath rows. A lot more guys than what they think. I've had plenty of people ask questions about it, just general inquiries. And, it's like, oh, I have a 2016 planner and I don't have CCS, whatever. And generally speaking, they're not that far off from being able to use implement guidance and use AutoPath rows. And as far as boundaries goes, using AutoPath boundaries, all that takes is boundaries.
Right. Good quality boundaries.
Yeah, of course. Right. Of course, good quality boundaries. But,
implement guidance makes so much sense. It's just one of those things that just makes sense. We were so caught up on where the tractor is. What really matters is where the implement is, right?
Yeah.
Where the rows are. And, obviously we wish it was all John Deere, but we have people with off-colored planters are still doing implement guidance with their John Deere tractors as well. So,
plenty. Now that does take, those customers might not be as close to implement guidance.
It takes a little more, little more work, a little more setup.
There's a few more labor hours on there.
Right.
But nonetheless, I have seen them work flawlessly on competitive systems.
Yeah, with John Deere technology. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I agree, Justin. I agree. It's a big thing that we've all. What's cool about it is the three of us. As long as we've worked together, we've kind of seen AutoPath come up together and really take off together.
Yeah. Should we take a step back and talk about AutoPath Boundaries, what it is, since it's still relatively new?
Well, AutoPath Boundaries versus AutoPath Rows.
Yeah.
And how all that fits together. That's a great idea.
Yeah. So
Because the names couldn't be more similar if they tried. Thank you, John Deere.
it doesn't exactly help for the confusion aspect of it, but
My favorite thing is when I type in AutoPath Boundaries, I'm kind of like a lazy texter typer. So I'll put APB and then I'm like, oh, this feels like I'm like a,
What, a policeman or
yeah,
something?
in the dispatch unit
that's good to know.
for local law
There's a
enforcement.
few too many acronyms out there to remember everything. That's good to know.
Don't use APB.
Well, so I'm going to let Justin go, but AutoPath Boundaries is the new starting point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So
what is it?
We've had that since last year. Still pretty new.
Well,
Not-
this year's the first year for spring.
This is the first spring we've been able to use it. Yeah. And, we've had AutoPath rows for a while now. The concept there is not new. We're getting our guidance lines laid out for the entire field. We know where the planter's at, so we know where our rows are at, so we know where the crop is at throughout the season. But we were lacking that step at the planter level, and people wanted to see that. People wanted to have that convenience of having their guidance lines across on a planter pass.
Or
any
the first pass.
Any first pass,
Well-
whether that be a strip till pass, tillage pass,
But
whatever's not
the
your
reason
source
that,
pass.
The reason that they needed that isn't just for a convenience sake. It's because they have to use these lines for the rest of the year. And there's a lot of people who, were backing into corners, which shout out to all the people that back into the corners. You're my favorites.
You like square corners, huh?
If we're allowed to have favorites,
Utilizing
they would be
every
my favorites.
every inch of that field.
Get
No,
as many
that's-
corn plants out there as possible. But anyways, and for whatever reason, you're documenting every time that planter is documenting coverage, you drop down, oh, nope, don't love that line. You're backing back up, dropping it down again. It's recording all of those. And when you go to use those in your combine, in tall corn on your sprayer, it's a lot less convenient. So we've always had to tell people, preface AutoPath rows when you're recording those with your planner and implement guidance. We've always had to tell them, be conscious of where you're dropping your planner and how you're planting.
Right.
But it kind of eliminates the need and the emphasis that we have to put on that because you have a perfect first pass.
So yeah,
It's a prequel. It's a prequel.
It is.
It's like this predecessor that didn't exist, and now we have the predecessor.
It's like the Yellowstone precursor.
I used to. Yeah.
I was going Star Wars, but I'm not a Star Wars person. So
Yeah.
it's a prequel.
There you go.
Is there prequels in Star Wars?
Yeah.
I don't know anything else. Okay, carry on.
No, I mean, I used to tell guys that we're using AutoPath for the first time. Hey, just like you were saying, that be cognizant about where you're recording, be cognizant about where you're driving. And in all honesty, I used to tell guys, hey, your first year, don't expect perfection. Like, this is the first time you're doing this. Don't expect it to be perfect. Be prepared for some screw ups and then think about that better next spring when you go to it and you understand how this works. Now I just tell them you need to have an AutoPath Boundaries file. This will set you up for success. And I want to stress too that this is not just for that first pass. We have this is a tool for multiple times throughout the season. It's not just that,
Tillage.
but for tillage, for maybe running the combine and beans, whatever that you may not use AutoPath rows
Spraying
for, or
beans
may
at
not
an
be
angle.
able to use AutoPath rows for. This is a tool.
Yeah, and it's funny with Work Planner we're talking about limiting button press as well. With AutoPath Boundaries, we've limited steering wheel touches, even more so, because straight back and forth is pretty easy. AutoPath rows has made it super easy. AutoPath Boundaries has made the rest of the field easy.
You add turn automation, you're sitting in a
You're not touching
almost autonomous tractor.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
So,
Yeah.
and the other thing I think that's cool about, and I've been explaining this as we've introduced AutoPath Boundaries to some customers, that within reason, as long as you have good quality driven boundaries, hopefully on SFRTK that are going to have long time repeatability, you create that AutoPath from boundary file. And as long as you don't intend to change your end row width, change, which direction you farm that field, that file's made. Use that year after year. As long as your lines aren't drifting, you have that file.
So I guess we ought to talk about the requirements. Obviously boundaries, as we've mentioned in prior podcasts, is a pretty darn big deal.
Op center.
Well,
That's a
op
good
center.
step.
Yeah. Op center, G4, G5. Yeah.
So this is very similar to Work Planner in that, and this is kind of why we tied them together for the purposes. Both of them very useful in planting, but also both of them very, I don't want to say required because I guess Work Planner, we have the substitution of we can just enter all of our documentation manually. And we can also build AutoPath Boundaries files from our display, given that we have the 4.0 activation. But both can be built in Op Center on your computer. And you can do them together, one after another, tie them together, and then send them out to your machine. So that's kind of why we tied them together. So Op Center, I would say, while not necessarily a requirement, I'm going to say highly encouraged, because I like the fact that you can get the preview on Op Center.
Right. And it's really simple to do. You walk through a few steps, and there are your guidance lines.
There was a customer who did the trial before the launch last spring, and he had his 13-year-old that made all of his AutoPath Boundaries files.
Nice.
Super easy to do.
In the land tab, it's a little bit of a unique place for us to go for this. In the land tab, and hit the add button. That's where we add our AutoPath boundaries. But you walk through, do you want headlands? Do you want what size is your implement? And what direction are you wanting these? And you hit the button. I mean,
Well,
it's
and the
pretty
implement
much
is
that
just
simple.
a preview.
Yeah.
It's just for your preview. So
Yeah.
when it crosses over into your display, it doesn't even take, let's say you made it based on a 60-foot width, and you're continuing to use them into spraying season because you also sent them out to your sprayer, and you're going to spray your beans at an angle. It'll take that and apply your working width without you having to change it.
That's right. Based
So-
on what your settings are in your
Yeah.
display. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's just like regular AutoPath. So it's awesome. Again, it's that prequel, get you started in that field when you don't already have your AutoPath rows. And then again, to re-explain how these work with AutoPath rows. Once you have that planting pass, and you are very likely using, if you're not using strip till AutoPath rows for your planting pass, you're very likely going to be use AutoPath boundaries, right? Because it's going to be your first pass for the season. And then you are currently mapping your rows for AutoPath from that point forward, correct? From that point forward, you are using AutoPath rows for the rest of the season. So they work hand in hand.
Yeah.
Thoughts, other thoughts, requirements, boundaries. We've talked about boundaries, but the reality is, again, we need good quality boundaries. We want to do a boundary with the same SF, RTK, or RTK signal that you are using in your tractors. Very, very important. We want to make sure you are setting the machine up properly to understand where the edge of the field is. We want to make sure you're setting up that boundary machine properly to account for anything hanging off a toolbar or a planter beyond the 30-inch row edge. So there are some things you got to take into account when you're doing boundaries. But boundaries are a huge, huge part of AutoPath boundaries. It's in the name, right?
Yeah, and we're talking the high fidelity. So recorded with SF3 or higher. Highly encouraging the either base station RTK or SFRTK correction signals.
Because the last thing we want someone to do is catch a marker on a phone pole or something like that.
And the other thing I will say is, in terms of correction signal, you cannot mix and match correction signal. So if we're using SFRTK on our planner, we're going in with the understanding that our boundaries are SFRTK, we're using SFRTK on our sprayer, and we're using SFRTK on our combine.
Absolutely.
Or any piece that you plan on using those boundaries with.
That's right.
Just because of the variation between the correction signal. Now, there is an adjustment if your boundaries were recorded with base station RTK. There is a conversion that we can do as dealers. So if you have a question about that, you can reach out to your local TrueLand dealership. They'd be happy to help you with that. But that is just a call out that I think is important that we make.
Right. The safest bet is to run your boundaries with the same correction that you're going to plant with. And
Well, that's obviously the best option. But since it's April, I'll give them some grace.
Right. And this is the, we've talked about being specific and site-specific farming, but this is probably the most highest need we've had in anything we've ever done for accurate boundaries.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think we've covered all the requirements. But one thing I do want to call out is that people might be currently sitting here listening to this podcast and saying, I don't need AutoPath boundaries because I use boundary fill. And I feel like boundary fill is popular enough, especially when it comes to planting, but this is better.
Oh, yeah. Significantly.
So there's lots of capabilities that boundary fill just will never have. Boundary fill is not going to be improved from here on out. Because we have AutoPath Boundaries to replace it as a solution.
This is the new better version by far.
The new and
It's so
improved.
much better.
Yeah. Boundary fill was a nice interim tool. We'll say there were just
It was good for its time.
Yeah, there was a couple struggles here and there that are going to go away with AutoPath rows.
Yeah.
Or AutoPath boundaries, sorry.
The two big ones for me are going to be A, the track extension, and B, the shift feature.
Yes.
So we have shift capabilities up to 150 feet. So at that point, why are you not just probably, 120 feet is probably the widest that we're going with our sprayer.
Yep.
So at that point, you're probably just hopping over to your next guidance line. So
Other thoughts, Justin? Now's the time to get those plans put together.
I have a couple of things thought about as we talked here that one is importance of offsets in all of this. Don't, yes, this is all higher technology. This is all digital. We've got some really cool tools now, but don't forget to have accurate measurements on your equipment or none of this works. That's crucial. The only other thing that I was thinking along, and this is silly. I know it's silly. I bring it up every time we talk about AutoPath boundaries, but if you go in and make one of these files, you look at the top of the page, it gives you a number on your number of passes across the field. I think it's a cool little feature they threw in there. I genuinely have had a conversation with a customer that they looked at that and we kind of toyed around with the heading angle and they went, oh, that's kind of neat. If I farmed it this way, I actually can make less passes.
That's right.
Now, is it always sensible? No, but it's just, they threw it in there. It's pretty easy for them to figure that up on the software side of things. And I think it's neat that we can actually go in and see how many passes are we going to have across this field. Can we be more efficient? Things along those lines.
Well, and on that, you can have two different plans for
Thank
one
you.
field.
Yes.
So
Thank
if you are farming a field, let's say you have a nice little L-shaped field, you can create two plans and use one for all of your north-south rows and then switch over to your east-west plan to finish
Absolutely.
that field off.
I was going to bring that up. Right now, that if you have a field that's farmed in two different directions or more, you do have to make plans for each of those directions. Maybe that will be worked into the software to where you can do that all under one plan in the future as it stands right now, which is pretty simple. You just literally make a plan, change the direction, make a plan, and then you send them both out. So that's one. I'm glad you brought that up. That's one, as we sit right now, one thing we got to remember. Question I have for the group. Okay, AutoPath rows requires
Implement
guidance. Does AutoPath boundaries?
No.
Is it about the tractor? Is it about the implement? You would want to have implement guidance. It would work better with implement guidance, but is it a requirement?
Not a requirement. Obviously, I'm going to say the more documentation or the more data points that we can be collecting to ensure that our equipment is where we say that it is. That's why we want the higher correction signal, right? It's just double checking that we are where we say we are, that we are where we want to be. So yeah.
It's recommended because on that outside pass, you want to make sure you know where that implement is going to be.
Yeah, we can get into the nitty-gritty details, but honestly, it would probably put me to sleep as well as everybody listening to this. So just for the purposes of this podcast, we'll just say not a requirement.
A suggestion.
Yeah.
Strong suggestion.
Yeah.
But if you're using things like tillage, you're not going to put an implement receiver on your tillage bar. So, and nor do we expect you to.
Right. Just wanted to make sure we clarify for our listeners that, especially if you're going to move into AutoPath rows.
Well, that's where I was going to go. I mean, obviously, if you want to use this as an opportunity to start documenting your source file for AutoPath rows, then you have to. But it is a cool tool, and it's a less expensive option to try the feature out.
Yeah,
The
usable.
AutoPath, it's a good way to get your feet wet into the
Absolutely.
AutoPath family.
Absolutely.
Use it with your burn down pass,
Yeah.
right? Use it with your fall tillage pass, right? Yeah, it's there.
Like I said, I had a few people last year that used it on combine and beans. That's a cool way to use it.
Never thought about that.
Yeah.
I know of plenty of people who will use it. Well, yeah, because a lot of people have gripes about harvesting their beans. And they like to harvest at an angle. But there are also plenty of people who spray at an angle for their beans
Yeah.
or their corn, but mostly for beans.
Yeah.
So yeah, they'll use it in the exact same way. There's also plenty of people, since implement guidance isn't required, if you have a different separate bean planter and corn planter, there's a lot of people that will use this for your bean planter as well.
Right.
I mean, we're just less particular about beans. I think that beans are important, but
Well, but you're talking narrow rows. Awesome tools in the John Deere tool bag this year, and you know what? You
and I would dare I say more easily accessible than we have seen in the
Absolutely.
past.
Yeah.
I mean, these are very cost effective. If not, you already have the capabilities to be doing these. Work Planner, Op Center's free. You probably already have JD Link, and if you have a Gen 4 or a G5 display, you are set up. Boom, right then and there.
Yep. And you know, we can sit here and talk about these in the microphones all we want, but to me, the real testament is what our customers think. And I think if you ask someone that's using these technologies, you're going to get a major thumbs up, 2 thumbs up. And
I have not had one single conversation with anybody who was inquiring about AutoPath at either AutoPath Boundaries or AutoPath Rows where I have had to actively try to prove the benefits. I will simply say, here are your neighbors who is running it.
Yep.
Call them up. And if you're interested after that, then give me a call back.
Yeah. Phone a friend.
10
Never
out of
fails.
10 times, I will get a phone call back.
That's right. We've got that confidence.
You know, any customer I've had that has started using work plans, you know, it's a free option to them. It's a tool for them. And I talk them into trying it out 1 year. Since then, that is a requirement year after year.
Right.
They don't stop using it, and they get frustrated if they forget to make one or forget, you know, that is a requirement in their operation going forward.
It's the cycle we have here. When we get new technologies, we bring it up, we ask people to try them, and then once they get a hold of them and they see the value, it just takes off like a wildfire. And with these two, that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah. They seriously speak for themselves. I don't even know why we've been talking about it for an hour. We could have just been like, check out these 2 things.
Right.
And then ended the podcast.
So again, I want to reiterate, I'm with you. You can set some things up in the display, but the Op Center is a great place to start setting up your AutoPath boundaries. Simple. You got to go into setup, land, and hit the add button to do it. It's a little tricky if you're not used to being in that space to start things. So.
And the ability to edit, make, assign, etc. each of these on the fly, whether that be in your display for AutoPath Boundaries or from your phone with Work Planner, is in a spring like we are preparing to have. It is bar none.
Yep. Parting thoughts?
Nothing I can think of. Try them out this year.
Yep. We got a little bit of time before planting starts.
Let us know if you want help with them.
That's right.
They're a great tool. Okay. Both.
Happy planting in 2025. Let's hope we get this rolling pretty soon.
Get your pontoons out.
Oh my gosh. I don't think they have quite enough horsepower to be pulling the corn planter.
Hopefully not yet. Not the pontoon. The
Maybe
pontoon
in Southern
memes
Indiana
haven't
right
started
now.
yet.
You know, I do, but I would say that we probably have some people who could rig some auto track units up to some Green Star units up to a pontoon, but let's not tempt them.
We're going to have more positive thoughts than that. We're all going to be in
Yes.
about the middle of April or a little bit after. We're all going to be rolling and the dust is going to be flying, right?
Yep.
And we're going to be using work plans and AutoPath boundaries.
And I'm going to be in a
Absolutely.
t-shirt instead of this vest with my heater on full blast.
That's true. Hopefully we can start wearing clothes for warmer weather soon because, yeah, the coats and hats need to go away. It's April.
And my office heater could probably take a break.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Justin, thanks for joining us again.
Of course.
Hopefully we can do it again for whatever future technologies we have coming. It's always fun to talk about exciting new stuff.
Always.
And speaking of, it's always fun to talk about stuff. I just want to call out the fact that we have an email, and it is truetalkpodcast@truelandequip.com. And if you guys have anything that you are curious about hearing more about, or something that we haven't covered, or even if you are a grower, shoot us an email or drop a comment below, and we'd be happy and love to interact with you and see what we can get going from there.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be awesome. That'd be
And
awesome.
obviously, until the next episode, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe so you get notified whenever our new True Talk episodes come out.
That's right. Talk to you next time.